Hey pod kids. So we have another Usapang Ensaymada episode where we talk about politics and stuff. We have the awesome Chel Diokno. He's a human rights lawyer, teacher, and father. He is the son of Jose Diokno, the former senator and secretary of justice who fought for democracy during martial law. And during the pandemic, he has helped at least 14,000 people through free legal help desk via Facebook. So basically, he's a good guy. He's an amazing person. And to add to that, actually, for the past 30 years, he and the Free Legal Assistance Group have helped defend thousands of Filipinos, including teachers, EJK victims, or victims of the war on drugs. So today we're gonna talk about the upcoming election, the current state of the nation, and pretty much his TikTok. Wake Up with Jim and Sab is exclusively on Spotify.
If you want to start your own podcast, check out anchor.fm. And if you like the podcast, make sure to follow on Spotify.
Also, share your stories
And
tag us on at Wake Up with Jim and Sab on Instagram and at ano ba?
Di ko alam.
Anyway, ito na yung show. But before that, ito yung latest single ng Cheats, Hakbang. Stream it on Spotify, watch the music video with Piolo Pascual on
Stream Hakbang,
YouTube.
Stream Hakbang.
See you later.
Kung iiwanan natin ang mundo, sa akin at sa'yo.
Good
Yes,
na.
recording.
Okay. Alright, hi attorney.
Hi.
Hello. Just call me Chel.
Hi, Chel.
Hi, sir. So first, we always say on this show we like to start out with these one-on-one convos with these esteemed politicians and public servants with Usapang Ensaymada. Okay, so when I say Usapang Ensaymada, relax lang, kwentuhan lang. Kamusta na si ano? So, my first pampainit ng Ensaymada talking point is, legally speaking, bakit bawal talaga naman dapat tumakbo si Bongbong Marcos, di ba?
Ang init naman ng ensaymada mo. Dapat sabayan natin ng kape yan.
Yeah, I guess I have to ask, attorney, kasi
There's a lawyer on the podcast.
yes, we've been talking about it on the podcast, and sinasabi ko nga na we've been updating our pod kids and trying our best to explain it as simple as possible, kung bakit madaya, whatever. But now that we have an actual lawyer and someone of your stature, could you quickly explain, like, ano ba, bawal ba talaga? I mean, kasi there are currently eight bids for his disqualification, right?
Or cancellation. If you can explain to me like I am your niece at a Christmas party and I'm asking you over Ensaymada po.
I'll try. Well, first of all, disclaimer lang. I haven't read any of the petitions. So what I will try to explain is just based on what I read as well on the news. And my little understanding of the subject matter. Kasi, election law is a specialized field. And even not all lawyers even understand the ins and outs of it. Dalawa kasi yan I-distinguish muna natin yung cancellation of certificate of candidacy doon sa disqualification. Yung pag kinancel yung certificate of candidacy kasi ang ibig sabihin nun ay you are not a candidate. Alright. Pag disqualified ka naman, ibig sabihin nun, you initially qualified but for some reason, you were disqualified.
Okay.
Why is it different? Iba yung, kasi for purposes of succession or substitution, kung hindi ka kandidato sa simula pa lang, hindi ka pwedeng i-substitute. Pero kung dinisqualify ka under certain conditions, pwede kang i-substitute. Alright.
Okay.
Ngayon, ano ba yung bakit ba siya nakasuhan? My understanding is this, and this part I know because I also filed my own certificate of candidacy. there's a question in the certificate of candidacy whether you have been convicted or not. Yeah, I think the wording is of a crime involving moral turpitude. At for people like me na talaga naman di ako na-convict ng any crime, ay syempre ang sagot ko doon, no. Apparently, ang nilagay ni Marcos Jr. ay no din. Despite the fact nga, as we know now, that there was a conviction and that conviction, although appealed later, naging final na convicted nga siya. So ang primerong tanong doon ay yung bang pag-convict niya for not filing his tax returns, is that a crime involving moral turpitude? There are many other issues, but that's basically it. And meron din naman jurisprudence sa konting kaalaman ko dyan that would appear to say that it is a crime involving moral turpitude. Pero subject of debate yan, kaya pinag-debatehan yan sa COMELEC ngayon. So that's the long and the short of that case. I'm not aware yung ibang petition kung ano yung basis niya, but I'm speaking of yung mga naunang petition na final.
So there are some that are calling for cancellation and others that are calling for disqualification, right?
Apparently, mukhang ganun nga.
Yeah. Well, that's a dilemma kasi parang what is moral turpitude in the eye of the beholder?
I think
Parang
that's the confusing thing, 'di ba? Parang yung moral turpitude, which I think when I think of turpitude, I keep thinking of a torpedo for some reason.
Ako a third.
Anyway,
Sorry.
but
Excuse
siguro
me.
okay, what I have two follow-up questions. Number one, your father was an active an active fighter against the martial law during the martial law era. And he parang, and I'm sure as kumbaga you lived during that time, 'di ba? And how does it feel na parang siguro how does it feel and paano kaya tayo nakarating dito na sobrang the mere fact that he is leading the polls and there's this wave of misinformation that's going around. How does it feel, and what do you think? How parang did you see this coming?
Okay, let's go back a bit in history kasi there's a part of the Marcos dictatorships, I don't like to call it legacy, but effects that hasn't really been discussed much, and that is how he captured the judiciary and basically poisoned the legal profession. In 1973, si Marcos changed our constitution and he replaced it basically. And in the constitution that he put in, he had a provision there that said that all judges and justices up to the Supreme Court would remain in office until age of retirement unless he decrees otherwise. So in other words,
Specifically he? Sorry to
the
interrupt.
president.
The
Yeah,
president.
president. So in other words, yung dating tinatawag natin na independent judiciary na hindi ka pwedeng tanggalin ng Pangulo, binago niya yon. He could now remove. He had the power to remove you. And that really destroyed the independence of the judiciary. So in other words, for until 1986, hawak niya sa leeg lahat ng mga judge at justice natin kasi pwede niyang palitan anytime for any reason or even for no reason at all. Now, imagine what that did to the legal profession. I'm a lawyer. I want to get the best clients. I want to make money. Siyempre, kung gusto ko manalo ako sa kaso ko, kailangan dikit ako sa Malacanang. Kasi pag dikit ako sa Malacanang at alam ng mga judge yan, matatakot ang judge sa akin. They would not want to rule against my client because if they do, susumbong ko sila sa Malacanang, baka bukas na bukas wala na silang trabaho. And that is exactly how the legal profession was poisoned. There were lawyers who saw an opportunity and found a way to get close to the palace. Those lawyers established networks that continue to operate today. Nandyan pa rin. And they changed the complexion of the profession. Kasi until martial law, medyo, I'd say, more or less malinis ang legal profession noon bago nag-martial law. Siyempre, meron ding mga corrupt noon, pero hindi to the degree that we find today. After martial law, naging parang dalawang klase ang abogado. Yung abogadong malinis, hindi nagbabribe. Yung abogado naman na talagang gumagamit ng network niya para mag-ayos ng kaso. And that remains the dichotomy today. That's why I tell my law students, akala niyo mahirap mag-aral ng law, mahirap magpasa ng bar exam. Pag kayo naging lawyer na, you will be faced with the biggest moral dilemma of your life. Are you going to practice law in the proper way, ethically, or are you going to do what others have done, succumb to the temptation and practice law by fixing cases? And that is where we are today as far as the legal profession is concerned. Direct impact yan ng Marcos dictatorship. Now,
Oh my God.
the other thing about it is that because of that kind of capture of the judiciary and capture of the legal profession, it has become so hard to get accountability for what happened during that period of time, during the dictatorship. To the point na hanggang ngayon, iilan lang, meron naman, no, pero iilan lang ang kaso that have really held the Marcoses accountable. And many of them, ang tagal. Yung appeal halimbawa ni Imelda, she was charged way back in the 4 decades ago. Na-convict nga siya, pero hanggang ngayon, nakabinbin pa rin yung appeal niya. And when cases take that long, it's as if justice is illusory, di ba? I mean, dapat noon pa yan natapos at noon pa yan na-implement yung sentensya niya. So that has now allowed the family to restore its political image. And start around the year 2005 or so, napapansin na namin na lumalabas na noon yung mga super slick, expensive videos on YouTube.
Oh, we saw those. We saw.
Yes, that
Animated.
began to rewrite history. And very clearly, they were targeting the youth at that time, the millennials who are now working age. We were very concerned at that time, pero kahit na nag-iingay kami noon, parang voice in the wilderness lang kami, maraming nadala na youth. So that by the time they reached working age, they were solidly in the belief that okay naman ng martial law. Golden years ng Pilipinas yan. Wala naman nangyaring masama ng dictatorship. They don't even call it a dictatorship. So that's why I think we are where we are now.
What an amazing answer kasi ang dami kong natutunan agad. The funny thing is, I think in our educational system, like ako, I studied in Ateneo. I remember we tackled martial law in grade school. But very briefly, like nothing about this and how, kasi we recently watched yung movie, yung Kingmaker. I'm not sure if you've seen that, but it's about the Marcoses. And okay, ako, like I didn't know about itong mga technicality na ganito. Pero Attorney Chel, like for example, like yung sinasabi nyo na hindi ba nung natanggal na sila, I'll try to make it as simple as possible. Nung natanggal na si mga Marcos, hindi ba parang, okay, then the power of that choosing of the judiciary, whatever, is now transferred to the next president, correct?
Well, okay, ito nangyari. Noong 1986, di ba, we scrapped the Marcos Constitution, we came up with our own, and that became ratified in 1987. To avoid what happened during the dictatorship, we created in the Constitution a Judicial and Bar Council na siya dapat ang magsiscreen kung sino magiging judge at justice, at supposed to be, the contemplation was it will be independent, autonomous, hindi na hindi na magiging madumi yung pag-appoint ng, hindi na politicize yung pag-appoint ng mga judge at justice. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. Unfortunately, the same networks that operated with impunity, yung mga legal networks that operated during the Marcos dictatorship were not dismantled, and they continue to operate even after EDSA. So, up to now, the process of appointing our judges and justices is so highly politicized. For example, in about 20 years ago, I was the general counsel of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. My boss at the time was the chair of the Senate Blue Ribbon, was Joker Arroyo. And I would get visits from lawyers from the province who would go to my office and say, "Can you help me?" And I would say to them, "Bakit po?" Kasi gusto ko magpa-appoint sa judiciary. "Why are you coming to me?" Sabi ko, "I'm just a lawyer here." Hindi, kasi kailangan namin ng backer. Kung wala kaming political backer, hindi gagalaw ang papel namin. And that is the reality up to now. That if you don't have someone high up there backing you up, it's very hard to get appointed to the judiciary. I'm not saying all, marami pa naman maayos at malinis na mga judge, justice. Pero nandun talaga yung issue na yan, na politicize ang process ng appointment. That's something I've been thinking about for a long time. How can we ensure that it is not that way? Well, given the existing system we have, which we cannot change kasi constitutional yun, yung JBC gawa ng constitution yan, we'll have to make it more transparent, more accountable. Kaya lang in the long run, you know what I'm thinking? Ako, ang isip ko ganito let's create a council of respected people in the community, in the country. Not just government people, but people from different sectors of our society. Sila mag-vet kung sino dapat maging justice at judge. At dapat, pagdating sa presidente, ministerial na lang yung pagpirma niya ng appointment. Kasi the minute you give that much power to the hand put it in one person, grabe. Imagine, the president appoints all the justices of the Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, Sandigan Bayan, Court of Tax Appeals, Regional Trial Court, Metropolitan Trial Court. He appoints the ombudsman. He appoints the Secretary of Justice and all the people in the Justice Department. He appoints all the prosecutors, the Commission on Audit, Civil Service, lahat sa kanya. Which is okay if you have a decent president. But if you don't, then it can easily be abused. At some point in the future, kailangan ma-revisit natin yan. Ayusin natin.
Sorry, just to clarify, there is a council right now?
A judicial and bar council, but it is composed completely of government and all of them are appointed by the president.
So wala rin.
Okay.
So kumbaga yung tagapili nung parang ang I'll summarize in our
in our ensaymada way.
In our ensaymada way. Yung dati, nung si Marcos, diba, he changed it. Sabi niya, ako na yung pipili ng mga judge.
Yes.
Tapos ang nangyari, iniba yung constitution.
May council na.
Kailangan may council ha.
Pero ako yung bibili.
Pero bakit gano'n nangyari? Bakit yung president pa rin yung namimili ng council?
Actually, dati, maganda yung sistema. Before martial law, lahat ng a-appoint na judge at justice, kailangan dumaan sa commission on appointment sa Congress. Which, while it's political, ang kagandahan ng commission on appointments, the opposition has representation there. And before they approve the appointment of anyone, ay talagang they look deeply into the background of that person. Kaya kung may skeletons in the closet yung i-appoint, lalabas at lalabas yun. Kaya kahit papano may check pa rin doon sa appointing power ng president. When Marcos took over, he padlocked Congress. So wala na rin yung commission of appointments. After EDSA, we put up a new body. Instead of going back to the old system na commission on appointments ang mag-vet, we've created the Judicial and Bar Council. thinking that the framers thought na that would ensure independence and remove politics. Pero hindi ganun na nangyari.
So, in the pre-Marcos time, how did the not corrupt setup work for the favor of justice and the nation? Paano siya before? Like, oy, ikaw ang police, ganyan, parang.
Bago siya na-appoint, dadaan muna siya sa vetting process ng commission on
Yun yung
appointments,
commission on
which is bicameral and kasama ang opposition.
Kasamang Congress rin.
Yeah, bicameral sa Congress yan. No? So kahit pa paano, na-vet talaga nila yung i-appoint ng presidente.
But sorry, Chel. Sorry, I can't call you Chel.
Attorney Chel, if you're uncomfortable.
Can I call you Tita Chel?
Pwede rin. Wag lang lolo.
Pwede ninong.
Pwede na rin lolo.
Ninong na lang, okay?
Ninong Chel. So, sometimes I'm still pleasantly surprised at some of the ongoings in politics. Like itong, nagugulat ako na meron pa ring mga, wow, they actually are trying itong formally scandal,
Oo nga
diba?
yung COA, diba? This
And the COA is doing, parang may,
apparently the COA is the one who uncovered this whole formally.
it's just a pleasant
Fiasco.
surprise na hindi naman pala lahat nga.
Na hindi lantaran.
Hindi naman, perhaps not everyone can be corrupted. Like what Attorney Chel is saying, na you choose to do it the way that you believe you should, or you turn into the dark side.
Pero ako, Ninong Chel, hindi ba, kasi ako, ang ilalaban ko lang doon is, may yung nangyayari sa formally, hindi ba dahil sobrang lantaran at medyo engot talaga tong mga to?
Engot
at
talaga.
Talagang kala nila, ang laki na ng ulo nila na parang, we are backing of the president, di ba? Wala nang resibo, delivery receipt na lang, blah, blah, blah. I think that's a big difference, and then therefore, COA has to flag it na because this is completely blatant. Can we hear your thoughts on this? Mamalibang take namin?
Well, first of all, I think we really have to give credit to COA that they really stuck to their duty. Ginawa talaga nila yung dapat nilang gawin. And hats off ako sa kanila, all the people who are in COA. As they're one of the few agencies that really has remained true to their calling in government service. And tama kayo, it should have been flagged kasi obvious na obvious. Hindi na, it's not even, there was no attempt even to hide it or to put it in layers. Walang ganun eh. Klarong-klaro siya. Ngayon, ang tanong na lang, hanggang saan aabot to? Kasi dapat talaga pagkaroon ng kaso yan. And of course, the main official who's supposed to be the watchdog against corruption is our ombudsman. So one of the questions I have is, anong gagawin ni ombudsman dito? So far, wala pa tayong naririnig kung mag-action siya. Despite, as you say, the glaring evidence.
It is glaring.
And also, since usapang ensaymada to, maglalagay na lang ng konting sisig. Sino ulit yung ombudsman?
What's an ombudsman?
I don't know, because I don't know. I haven't heard from this guy who's supposed to be the watchdog.
Sino nga ba
I didn't know we had a
ombudsman?
watchdog. Sino ba ang watchdog?
Okay. Ang ombudsman, ang purpose talaga niya is really to check and to make sure that everyone in government does what they're supposed to do, walang corruption, walang mismanagement of public funds. The present ombudsman is Samuel Martires. He used to be with the Supreme Court and then was appointed by the president to the office of the ombudsman. So siya ngayon ang nakaupo dyan.
Nakaupo ba siya sa Boracay or sa...
I have never heard of that name in my entire life.
Name.
So obviously...
Baka he's not on Twitter. If you're not on Twitter, you don't exist.
No. Well, I'm going to do my research. Samuel Martires.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, I don't know, baka naman...
Baka naman he is doing
Oh,
something.
sorry. We are
going to do our
We're
research.
just having fun. Okay. So I guess my next question would be, why do you think it would be dangerous to have a Duterte and Marcos regime?
I think it's a question of what kind of leadership do we want, especially in this pandemic. We need the leadership that is capable of taking us to a new normal, as they call it, which means that it must be a leadership that has the right management skills and that has the heart really for the people. And if you're talking about the kind of leaders that are represented by the Marcoses and the Dutertes, they're really a very traditional type of leadership where their concern is amassing power, being the number one in the pyramid. Ako yung uh, unang-una dito, ako magdidikta. When the kind of leader I think we need is more of what they call a servant leader. Yung talagang who's out there without any personal agenda of creating any kind of political dynasty or amassing great power or great wealth, and who's really there to help the people. Kaya in this pandemic, I think we've seen both kinds of leaders in terms of our president and our vice president. Such a contrast. You have one who's really, really dictates and doesn't want to listen. Basta ako ang boss. Makikinig kayo sa akin, susundan niyo yung ginagawa ko. Di ba? Parang ganun ang leadership ni Duterte. And then you have, in contrast, a leader who, despite her small budget and all the problems, obstacles being put in her way, has managed to help so many people and has such wonderful projects. It's gonna be the people's choice. Ako, it's not a choice for me. Kasi clearly sa akin, the vice president is the one who has the kind of leadership we need to get us out of this pandemic.
That was a standing ovation.
Well, obviously we are kakampigs. We've had VP. We'll call it. We've had
President
President Lenny on the show twice, and one of the things that really struck out was when, well, number one, I think like you and her. I mean, I think this is the main difference. No, parang we talk to your team before we do the pod, and walang, "Oy guys, let's not talk about this ha." Parang, so honestly, like for someone who's running for president, wala kaming kahit anong nakuhang press briefer or whatever. Usapang ensaymada kami agad. And then she pretty much tried to explain how these political dynasties have risen and how corruption can happen so quickly.
Yes.
Parang she was parang kinukwento niya na yun nga, parang a congressman owes a favor to this person, or parang this congressman hinihingan ng pang-hospital bills ng ganito. So, and then the favors keep adding up. So, anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that this is the type of, and this is why we love doing these interviews, because our pod kids need, I think their ears need to be cleansed. Because parang syempre, if you're on Twitter, all you see is Roque, all these the substitution thing, whatever.
A cleanse is needed.
Yeah.
And speaking of our pod kids, Attorney Chel, Ninong Chel, you are a big advocate of the youth. So I want to ask, what's up with that?
No, actually, I think it's the other way around. When I ran in 2019, I first started hearing the phrase woke lolo, which I didn't know what it meant. And I had to ask my daughter, Ines, and I said, Ines, ano ba yan, woke lolo na yan? And she said, well, at the time when it first emerged, it was really a positive term, di ba? Na
Yeah.
parang progresibo ka, your philosophy is aligned with what the young people believe in. So that really it surprised me, but at the same time, it also it was very heartwarming for me to hear that. Now, ever since that time up to now, grabe ang connection nila sa akin, and in the same way, yung connection ko sa kanila. Because I received invites even after the elections of 2019, I continued to receive invites every week. I would have a talk from all the way from Zamboanga to Bulacan, students from all over the country. And that has deepened my connection with them, as well as their bond with me. Because I've learned so much from them in terms of how they view the world and what they want for our country. And I realized that it's so aligned also with my vision and with what my dad wanted also for the country. Kaya over time, lumabas pa nga yung salitang children.
Yes, children.
And that was purely a spontaneous thing that came about because it's I don't know how to explain it rationally, the connection, but all I can say is that um, we have it's more than an intellectual connection. I feel an emotional bond with our with my children, call it that way, in the same way that I'm very close to my biological kids.
Why I feel that's the case? It's because for how many years we, millennials, the youth, parang we just feel so let down by the generations that have been just parang placed in power and just parang kuha lang ng kuha ng kuha ng kuha, and then it's so refreshing to see now, hey, you're not like them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, actually,
so can you adopt us?
Sure.
It's your children.
Again, if I know, I can try to share my sentiment. Like, okay, sorry.
Tama, may sounds pa.
Sorry.
That's our cue ending song. But anyway, mine is when I first saw your name pop up in Twitter, and then my friends were saying, "Go for Chel, go for Chel." And again, I've never been in. I haven't been that active in.
I think the last elections was your first.
The last elections was the first time that I was very involved. But anyway, I didn't know, who you were. Sorry, but you have become a resource for sanity on Twitter. Though parang kumbaga, I've created a Twitter account that follows select number of people. So I think it's that tama si Sabe. It's refreshing to parang have a truthful, to hear something truthful from someone who is in the world of our justice system, diba? So yeah, I mean, so siguro my question is, and I think our pod kids would love to hear this also. We were very, very disappointed with what happened with Ocho Derecho. Diba? What do you take away from that? And how do you think, parang what can happen moving forward? Kaya?
Well, I learned so much in that campaign. I was just a newbie. I had no political savvy then. And at least I can say I have a quick learning curve. So we took away so much from that campaign: how to run a campaign, how to manage a team, what do you need on the ground in order to really effectively get your message across, social media, comms. And I'm so proud of my team now. We're intact. Basically, it's the same team as 2019, but this time around, we have much more experience and nadagdagan pa kami. Kaya when it comes to messaging and to comms, I think I can proudly say I have one of the best teams. Medyo magmamayabang ako ng konti dyan. But we really work very well together. And it's really a collective effort. I listen to them even more than I tell them what to do. Because I've always had this philosophy that a leader has to be able to listen. How can a leader know everything? It's impossible. Maybe some geniuses are capable of that, but I'm just an ordinary mortal. maybe I know a little more about the law and all that. But when it comes to politics, we're all newbies at it, and I would rather have the benefit of other people's minds and what they think about things before real decisions are made. So, dala namin yan. Kaya the organization I have is really flat eh. Hindi siya yung galing sa taas lahat ng utos, etc., etc. And I think that's the best way to operate a political organization.
I love that. Well, it's nice to feel very supported. Like someone is supportive of not just the youth, but like of humanity.
Of humanity, and decency.
Yeah.
And I think and I think the youth and parang our baseline na nga for improvement is so parang we just want parang pwede ba please wag nyo kaming nakawan this year? Parang gano'n na nga lang gano'n na yung
The bar is so
gano'n na
low.
yung environment namin. So we know that if we have people like you and Ma'am Lenny in positions that can make real change, grabe what we could do. 'Di ba? Parang tama na yung parang yung pala, yung inaanak ko, gawin mong contractor yan. So anyway, sorry.
Personal experience, Chip?
Yeah. So I guess before we end, we really want to say thank you for
Thank you so
for
much.
joining the pod, no? And siguro my question is our final question would be, what would be your advice for aside from social media and parang kumbaga, what would be your selling point na lang? Yun na lang pala, mali. What would be yung sales pitch mo sa mga taong magsasabi, kaya?
Unsure pa sila.
Parang wala namang chance si Lenny kasi Duterte, Marcos regime yan. Or wag tayo kay Attorney Chel kasi wala yan sa machinery, parang whatever. Or yung vote ko, mas ayoko masayang yung vote ko. What would be your sales pitch?
Well, first, I'd say that your vote is your voice, and young people. I always get this complaint from a lot of young people that people my age don't listen to you. So one of my responses to them is, well, you're going to have a perfect opportunity in 2022 to express yourselves in the best way you can by choosing the candidates you want to have power in the country. The choice is really going to be in your hands because more than half of the voters in our country are young people. 53% ang number. So if you vote, the way you vote is going to determine who will be the next president and the other leaders of the country. And how you vote is going to depend on what kind of a future you want for the Philippines, for yourself, for your families, and for your communities. And I would suggest you look for candidates who really, truly have a track record and who really love our country. Lalabas at lalabas naman yan kung salita lang yun, kung pangako lang o talagang ginagawa nila sa pang-araw-araw na buhay nila. And that's how you can, if you look at for example, what does VP Lenny Robredo do on a daily basis? She helps people. That's what she does. She doesn't politic. She doesn't maneuver. She doesn't scheme and manipulate. She just helps people. And I truly believe that's the kind of leader we need to take us out of what's happening today.
You don't think we need a leader in a Colombo?
No, not at all. I mean, palagay ko sawa na tayo dyan yung mga ganun klaseng leader. Ang dami-dami na natin ganyan, di ba?
Attorney Chel, I think ang kailangan natin is more Ford Expeditions. Kailangan natin mas maraming Land Cruiser.
More wang-wangs,
Kailangan
please.
natin yun para yun yung kailangan ng bansa natin. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
We are guaranteeing your win. Our podcast is guaranteeing Attorney Chel's win.
We are voting
Thank you.
for Ninong, for Tito, for
Ninong Chel.
For Papa Chel.
So everyone, all the podcasts listening, please tweet Instagram and say you are voting for Ninong Chel. Okay? Okay, let's do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.